Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Siva Sari Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam, devotees. Of course, this is the question and answer session. It's not a live question and answer session per se. Sometimes I may answer questions that appear in the comments, but it's usually questions that have been written in, and I'm answering them via this medium, as I explained many times, because it affords the opportunity for corrections. If I make any mistake or anything, senior devotees will make corrections, and so that way everybody's benefited, myself and those who asked the question originally, etc. So today the question was regarding a inbox question. Actually, the inbox question was, why do some Gaudiya Vaishnavas honor Shivaratri in one way and other Vaishnavas honor it differently? And is it not an offense to the holy name to equate the demigods like Shiva and Brahma with Lord Vishnu? So how do we reconcile, for instance, fasting with Ekadasi preparations on Shivaratri when we do that for Krishna and Mahaprabhu and Vishnu Tattva? So it was a well-worded question, and there were a lot of elements to it, but I thought if I addressed in a short video here something of Shiva Tattva, then it would answer those questions and perhaps clarify some things. So one is that the tattva of Lord Shiva is very complex. So we have to have some kind of starting point or genesis of the nature of Shiva tattva in order to understand the various manifestations that is the sort of expansions of Shiva tattva. So the original form of Lord Shiva, and I'm going to read directly from Lagu Bhagavatamrita of Srila Rupa Goswami Pad, and he has explained, this is in Lagu Bhagavatamrita, this is in the second chapter actually. I'm reading verse 31. Sada Shivakya tam murtis tamo gandha vivarjitaha sava karana bhuta so anga bhuta swayam prabhu vaya vyadeshu saveyam shiva loke pradarshita. So the verse says that the form of Lord Shiva, which is the original form, is called Sadashiv. It is devoid of any trace of tamas. So in other words, we normally associate, when we think of Lord Shiva, as described in Brahma Samhita, Kshiram dadati vikara vishesha yoga. From this shlok, that Shiva is that person who, like the example is given, like milk transforms into yogurt, right? That this form of Lord Shiva undergoes this kind of transformation to have contact with Tamogun in order to carry out the destruction of the world. Also, that same principle is the genesis of ahamkar, is the genesis of the material elements, earth, water, fire, ether, just a lot of things. So, but the original form, here, back to our point, the original form of Lord Shiva is called Sadashiv. So, Sadashiva is actually directly a manifestation of Narayan. This is Rupa Goswami's point here. He is directly Narayan. He is the Vilas or Swamsa or Swayamru Krishna, and is the cause of all causes. That form is described as dwelling in Shivalok Vaikuntha in the Vayu Puran and other scriptures. So Rupa Goswami here is saying that this form of Sadashiv is actually a Vilas Murti of Shri Krishna. So Vilas Murti means like a pastime form. But even there's some nuance here, because it's also described in the Puranas that in the Adi Ras Mandal means the original rasa dance. So try to understand here, when we say something like the original Ras dance, right, we don't have a historical calculation to that. So historical here Adi Ras Lila means here, original Ras Lila here means the conception itself of Ras Lila. Right? The Ras Lila is an eternal pastime of the Lord, and there is no beginning to it, and it didn't come at a certain time. But for the sake of tasting Lila, right, different events are described as appearing or manifesting, etc. Like the appearance of Radha Kund. Radha Kund is an eternal feature of the Dham, but we celebrate the appearance of Radha Kund, right, which is really the discovery of Radha Kund by Mahaprabhu, factually. But we celebrate that, right, on a particular day, right, or the appearance of Sri Krishna. Even though we know Krishna's Roop and everything else is eternal, we celebrate Krishna Janmastami, right? So the point here is that when it describes the Adi Rasa Mandal, or the original rasa dance, it's describing the idea, the original idea of the rasa dance, the original manifestation of the rasa dance. And in the Puranas, it says that in that original Rasa Mandal, right, that from the left side of Krishna, Srimati Radhika appeared. Now, that all makes sense to this point, but it says from the right side appeared Sadashiv. So this is a very amazing thing, because we understand the appearance of Srimati Radhika in relation to the rasa dance. But what is the nature of the appearance of Sadashiv? So it then goes on to say that this manifestation of Sadashiva performs the pastime of becoming Gopisvara Mahadev. So obviously many people know this pastime. Some people may not be familiar with the pastime. So just quickly, as best I can recall in my memory, in order to understand the greatness of the rasa dance, because the rasa dance, Samyak Sarvasana Krishnera Ras Lila, Rasa Lila Vasanate Radhika Shrinkala, in the Madhya chapter 8 in Ramananda Sambad, then the nature and the glory of the Rasa Lila has been described, right? And it's described there that among all Krishna's pastimes, Samyak Sarvasana Krishnera Ras Lila. This Rasa Lila is the pinnacle, right? Sri Rasa Mandala Jaya, Jaya Radhe Sham, Jaya Jaya Rasa Lila, Sava Manoram. That of all the pastimes of Krishna, the most enchanting is this rasa dance. Why is that? Because Krishna himself is Akila Rasa Amritamurti. I mentioned this the other day. Or Rasa Vai Saha. He is the connoisseur of tasting rasa, right? So rasa is tasted through various leelas. So Krishna tastes, let's say, in the Damodar Bandhan Leela, when Mother Yashoda ties Krishna. Oh, there's the fullness of the taste of Vatsalya Prema. Krishna's playing with his cowherd boyfriends. There's the fullness of the taste of Sakyabhav here, and the rasa inherent in Sakyabhav. Similarly, in the Ras Leela, the taste of the Gopis Prema, and especially the Prema Srimati Radhika, is tasted fully in that Ras Leela. Right? And the Ras Leela is not just a dance. There's so many components to Ras Leela. You'll have to read Ras Panchadhyay, the 5 chapters dealing with Ras Leela, and understand what is the Pranay Geet, and also understanding what is all the elements of Ras Leela, Van Vihar, Noka Leela, Do Leela, means swing pastimes. So there's so many different pastimes, and in all these various pastimes, there's so much rasa that's tasted. So it's called Ras Leela. So a long A in Sanskrit, Ras Leela, means that which is ashwadan or tasted. So it's curious that Sadashiv would appear in the original conception of the rasa dance. What is the function of that? So because that Sadashiv manifests the pastime of becoming Gopisvara Mahadev, which is that he wanted to understand the glory of the rasa dance and understand the glory of Srimati Radhika. So he goes and he attempts to enter the rasa dance, but of course in the rasa dance there is no Purush Bhav. Purush Bhav means male energy. The only male or Purush Bhav is Sri Krishna himself, who is the Vishaya, or the object of love. So all the other energy there is Ashraya Jatiya, right? Means the repositories of love. So there is no male energy there except Krishna, right? So in order to enter that Ras Mandal, then it was necessary to have the form of a gopi. So Lord Shiva, doing deep prayer and meditation, gets the mercy of Purnamasi Devi. He's dipped in Brahmakund, I believe it's Brahmakund, and then his form transforms into that of a young teenage gopi. So entering into the Ras Mandal, of course, a new person has arrived. So all of the gopis approach, say, oh, there's one new Sakhi has come here, right? Because they consider that all these manifestations of gopis, they're meant for Krishna's pleasure. So all the gopis came immediately because they want to offer this Sakhi to Sri Krishna for his enjoyment, but they're vetting to see who is this Sakhi. So they approach and they ask, oh Sakhi, what is your name? So now Shiva, and there's a lot of upakyan here, a lot of teachings here. So Mahadev, he did not receive a name from Purnamasi, only the form of a gopi. So when they ask, oh Sakhi, what is your name? Then Mahadev could not answer. Oh Sakhi, perhaps coming into this Rasa Mandal, you are so astonished by the beauty that you cannot remember even your own name. But you must remember the name of your parents and your village. So again, Mahadev could not answer. So in this way, a series of questions were asked by the gopis to Mahadev, and when Mahadev could not answer any of the questions, the gopis thought, perhaps because in this Braj, many demons have come and taken the form as imposters in some way, form, or fashion, as Putana did, as Vatsasura did, right? So maybe this is one imposter who has come into this rasa dance. So now the gopis began to chastise that Mahadev by giving several slaps. So now Mahadev, under great distress, began to call out Purnamasi to come to his aid. So at that time when Purnamasi came, Krishna then told, listen, be merciful to this Sakhi and don't be so harsh. So at that time, by the mercy of the gopis, Mahadev was awarded the position called Gopesvara Mahadev. So Gopesvara means whose Ishwara, whose master is the gopis. And Krishna gave the position of a chokidar, like a guardian, to Mahadev, saying that you will be the eternal guardian of the Ras Mandal, that nobody with Purush Bhav can enter. Now you have this direct experience yourself, so you prevent anyone who has Purush Bhav from entering. So I didn't really want to go down this track because I don't want to expand the class too long, but there's a very deep upakyan here. The upakyan is that in Sahajavad, there is the attempt to enter into the space of Gopi Bhav without doing Gopi Anugatya properly. You understand? Gopi Anugatya means following the path of the gopis in the bona fide system of Guru Parampara, etc. But the idea of simply wanting to be a gopi, and maybe if they're doing Sakhi Veki means dressing like a gopi and everything else, but not having the actual realization of an internal form. So taking the mundane roop, the mundane material form, and dressing it and thinking it to be fit to be a suitable object of enjoyment for Krishna is Sahajavad. Prakrita Sahajavad, technically. So by this Leela, Mahadev is also teaching that unless one is imbued with the actual spiritual qualities that have come from Swarup Shakti, right? Of course, this is a Leela, but teaching in our case that unless one is imbued with Swarup Shakti, in which one becomes endowed with the 11 elements, Ekadas Bhav, of your actual Swarup, the attempt to enter into the nature of Gopis' love for Krishna and the mood of Ras Leela, etc., without these things having come in a genuine way from Nam Bhajan, from Sadhu Kripa, etc., is tantamount to getting yourself punished. But you won't be so lucky as to be directly punished by gopis, because you'll never actually enter the rasa dance. You'll simply enter into the fire of aparad and simply be chastised by it. So there's a Guru Pakyan here that we cannot artificially obtain this mood. But also in the pastime of Mahadev becoming Gopisvara Mahadev, a very interesting thing is brought about, a very deep conception. Because Rupa Goswami is described, he is the Vilas feature of Bhagavan. Vilas means like a pastime feature. So this Sadashiv that appears in the Adi Ras Mandal is actually the Adi Icha. Adi Icha means an original desire of Krishna himself to understand the glory of Ras Leela, right? Because Krishna himself is in the Ras Leela, but he has a curiosity. What is the glory of this Ras Leela? Oh, Mukunda, how can you say that? How do you know that this is true? Krishna Kaviraj Goswami is written, Sri Radha-Pranaya Mahima Kidrasovanyeva. That Krishna himself wants to understand the Mahima, the glory of the pranay of Radhika. That pranay is on full expression in the Ras Leela. So Krishna wants to understand what is the glory of Radhika's love. How she tastes my Chatur Madhuri. Venu Madhuri, Leela Madhuri, Prema Madhuri, Rup Madhuri. Radhika, when she experiences these things from Krishna, it produces in her a unique happiness that Krishna himself doesn't experience. Shokyam Chasya. Krishna wants to know, what is that happiness? So in order to do that, Krishna comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But here my point is that the Adi Icha in the Adi Ras Mandal manifests the Sadashiv. One meaning of Sadashiv, Sada means eternal or ongoing. Shiva means auspicious. So the eternally auspicious inner desire of Krishna is to understand the glory of the love of Radhika. This is the first manifestation of that Icha, that desire. And in order to fulfill that desire, the pastime of becoming Gopisvara Mahadev is played out, but that desire is not fulfilled there. So not until Shri Krishna is able to actually fulfill that desire by his descent as Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, imbued with the Kanti and Bhav, moods, and Varnavastu, or the substantive manifestation of Radhika's color, right? He comes as Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That's when he can taste this. But he has to give up the position of being the Vishaya Jati, means the position of being the object of love. So Bhakti Bhav Angikari, he takes a position of being a devotee where the repositories of love are manifest. Right? So the highest devotee, of course, is Srimati Radhika, and he takes that mood. So this position of Sadashiva is very unique and very deep. That same Sadashiv manifests in other pastime forms. So that original Sadashiv who originally manifests the pastime of Gopisvara Mahadev also manifests pastimes within the Srishti Leela. So first, that same Sadashiv appears in the glance of Karna Dakshayi Vishnu or Mahavishnu. So that glance is called Sadashiv. That glance, Sadashiv, also appears in Gaur Leela as Shri Advaita Acharya. A halo surrounds that glance coming from Mahavishnu, who is Sadashiv. That halo takes the form called Shambhu. It is a reflection of the desire of the Lord for Srishti Leela. Srishti Leela means the Leela of the creation, right? This whole pastime of creating the material world and then its dissolution and recreation, etc. It's called Srishti Leela. So this is a desire also of Bhagavan. So it's expressed. What is this? Ananta Vaikunte Brahmananda Karena Vihar. That the Lord has pastimes in unlimited Vaikuntha planets, including Gokul Braj, and also in unlimited Brahmanandas. So he performs pastimes in both places. So his desire to perform the Srishti Leela, one manifestation of how that comes about is that this principle of the inner desire of the Lord for tasting this comes in the form of Sadashiv, who comes in the glance of Mahavishnu. Because it's mentioned here, Tamo Ganda Vivarjita, that form of Sadashiv does not even have the smell of touching Tamogun. So who actually comes in contact with Tamogun? The halo of that Sadashiv is called Shambhu. It is that Shambhu who then has connection with the reflection or the shadow of Ramadevi, the consort of Lord Narayan. right? And she becomes Durga Devi. And she manifests in this world as the principle of the yoni, and Shambhu manifests as the principle of the lingam. That's what you have as the Shiva Linga. It is through that facility that all of the jivas make their appearance in various cycles of the creation within the material world. As well, it is this Shambhu halo that becomes the principle of ahamkara in the jiva. Because you cannot enter the material world if you have the bhav of being das of Krishna. Right? You would not enter the material world. Now here I'm not speaking about an original entrance into the material world or anything. I'm speaking a ontological look at this whole thing. Ontological means like a study of the nature of something. So I'm not talking about a history here. Right? So, but the jiva has to have a sense of ahamkara. That ahamkara comes from the principle of Shambhu. And when the jiva enters into the yoni, the feature of material energy, right, the combination of time and the desire of the Lord, all these things mixed together, and the combination of Durga Devi and the Shambhu come together as yoni and lingam, and this is the genesis of creating the material world. In short, right, there's so many, the secondary creation by Brahma, so many things are there, but this is the basic genesis of how Srishti Leela is brought about, right? So this Sadashiv has many functions in the capacity of being actually Vishnu Tattva. That same Shambhu also manifests various functions within the Srishti Leela. He manifests the energy in the post called Lord Shiva, who is the Devata. You understand? So that post is actually a manifestation of Sadashiv, right? But that post has elements of connection with the material energy, especially the mode of Tamogun, and this is what the Brahma Samhita verse is talking about. Shiram yata dadadi vikara vishesha yoga. So in that verse, it's describing that transformation that takes place with Shambhu, Tattva, Sadashiv, etc. Understand? Also, that same principle manifests as the Rudras, which come from between the eyebrows of Brahma, and who are responsible at the destruction, the pralaya, end of the creation, for the winding up and destruction of the creation. So there are many elements to Shiva Tattva. Not only there's demigod Lord Shiva that we think of in that capacity, but it's actually a very deep Tattva, and there's many elements to it. So as Vaishnavas, we recognize all of the elements, but we understand the original element of Shiva Tattva is Sadashiv, and the first Leela of that Sadashiv is Gopisvara Mahadev, who's very worshipable for us, because he is the guardian of the Rasa Mandal, and our highest aspiration is service to that Rasa Mandal in some way, form, or fashion. Especially in the line of Mahaprabhu, those who aspire for Paryadasi Bhava, Radhadasyam, this is indispensable. Sanatana Goswami Pad, he would always do his bhajan in places of the forms of Lord Shiva for this reason. So, Shiva Tattva is not a very simple thing. My Guru Pada Padma Nitya Lila Praveshtom Shnu Pada Paramahansa Stotra Satta Sisiman Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, out of his causeless mercy, he has manifested one book called Shiva Tattva. And in that book, all of these things that I'm describing, they are there. And also, of course, Rupa Goswami is written in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And in the second chapter, he discusses the Purusha avatars and Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva in their position. So I've read something from that second chapter, text number 31. And then you can go on to read the commentary that's there and everything else. And it will describe these things. So hopefully this answers the question. And of course, on the Vishnu Tattva appearance days, we follow Ekadasi Brat. We follow not taking grains, etc., etc. Right? So this is why we fast on that day. So to answer that part of the question. And it is not a conflation, to answer the last part, it's not a conflation of the demigods with Lord Vishnu. Because in this case, the worship is of the principle of Sadashiv, which is the original form of Lord Shiva, which is Vishnu Tattva. Right? So it's not saying that the demigod post Lord Shiva is equal to Lord Vishnu. It is speaking to the original form of Lord Shiva, which is Sadashiv. So hopefully this brief video answered some of those questions and didn't cause more confusion. I think it's a very beautiful understanding, because my Guru Padma, he told this Harikatha from the Puranas of Lord Shiva, Sadashiv manifesting in the Adiras Mando. And I asked, I think, more than once how to understand this and everything else. And Srila Gurudev gave various answers. I remember one answer that he gave was that this is the form of all auspiciousness, Sadashiv. That's where I had gotten that explanation from. And the all auspiciousness of the Lord takes place in the Ras Lila. So, you know, and then of course from his Harikatha, my Gurudev's Harikatha, and many other cases, and from especially from the book that he manifested, the Shiva Tattva book, was able to understand all of these things. So it's also important to understand that Krishna has so many desires, right? And his desires are automatically fulfilled. Parasya Shakti Vidvidava Shriyate Swabhavaki Bala Gyana Kriyacha. It's automatically fulfilled by his Shaktis, whatever Krishna desires. So in this case, Krishna's desire to understand the love of Radhika is an original thing within the Lord. And it manifests in the Adiras Mando as his curiosity. One part of the vilas of Sadashiv is being the personification of that curiosity. This is why the pastime of entering the Ras Lila and becoming Gopesvara Mahadev, this is why this pastime takes place. And this is the original form of Lord Shiva, which is very worshipable by all. Alright? My Dandavat Pranam, Vanchakalpatruvescha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Jai Radhe Radhe.